Ever since I was a child, people said my family was cursed. Mom tried to protect us with God. Pop tried to protect us with wrestling. He said if we were the toughest, the strongest, nothing had ever hurt us. I believed him. We all did.
Morning.
Pants tomorrow, please, David.
Terry, I want you to join your brothers in the ring.
Yes, sir. I love that.
Now, we all know Kerry's my favorite, then Kev, then David, then Mike. But the rankings can always change.
What do you want in life, Kevin Von Erich?
More ribs? I want to be with my family. You know, be with my brothers.
What do you like to do with your brothers?
Together, we can do anything.
We're here to restore justice to the Wrestling Federation that our father built with his own two hands. The hands that were passed down to us. The hands that will deliver the Iron Claw to you.
So what do you think? Like, we're alive.
I love your family, Kevin.
Gonna be an uncle?
Yes, sir.
Oh man, that makes me so happy.
I'll talk to you about something, Mom. Dad's too tough on us. You gotta say something.
Baby, that's what your brothers are for.
Feel that? You feel that? That's pressure.
You push it too hard.
I'm fine, Kev. Seriously, I'm just sick.
I'm scared, man. It all out of control.
That's a terrible accident.
I should have stopped him. I need to think about my family.
Your job is to wrestle. Live up to that deal, or we are through. I told you to look out for him!
I just love being out there with you guys. It's the only thing that matters to me.
The Bonner will forever be the greatest family in the history of wrestling.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Farrand Film and the SLTD Wrestling Roundtable. We're doing a little bit of a joint episode. It's just myself and Ty today. We went to see an early screening of the film The Iron Claw earlier this week, and we're going to basically give it a review. We're going to give it a bit of a spoiler-free review, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of some of the stuff that we really want to talk about. So I'll let you know where that is if you are planning on going watching this film when it comes to UK cinemas on the 9th of February, this coming Friday. But if you're unaware, if you've lived under a rock, if you're not a wrestling fan, The Iron Claw is the true story of the Von Erich brothers who made history during the 1970s and the 1980s. And their story is a fantastically tragic one that for the first time on a narrative piece of work has been put to the big screen. We had the sort of Dark Side of the Ring episode that came out, and I think a lot of people learned certain things from that. But this is, you know, a big budget Hollywood film, and yeah, like some of the things that I just wanted to mention, and I'm sure you're the same, Ty, because we spoke about it on the way out. Some of the performances in it, like you said, career best Zac Efron.
What, like, not even like I haven't seen a lot of Zac Efron films, to be fair, but I haven't seen many where it's like a nitty gritty drama like this was, and yeah, not I don't think anything I've seen him in came close.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. Like this was some good stuff from Zac Efron, like.
Just all round, I think, because if we work through the sort of family that we've got, so Zac Efron plays Kevin Von Erich, Jeremy Allen White, who people might know from The Burr, plays Kerry Von Erich. Again, another fantastic performance.
Yeah.
Harris Dickinson playing David. Again, a lot of people were sort of assuming that Harris Dickinson might get nominated for some sort of supporting actor role or something like that. That's not really come to fruition, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the odd release date stuff later. One that I think has gone under the radar of people talking about it, the Michael Von Erich performance from Sam Simons. I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
Especially when he goes through sort of the issue that happens to him that we're going to talk about in more detail later. But then you've got people like Holt McCalland playing Fritz, the father, evil bastard.
Oh,
Like,
he was good though, like he was really like I don't know how much of the what can you say, like because obviously it's based on true events.
yeah,
So they've obviously took certain liberties to progress the story, and as you do, which is a fair assumption. Because the Von Erichs weren't involved, I don't think.
mm,
So if he's even nearly as close as the actual dad was, wow,
yeah,
like that's a that's a heavy father figure to have. I'll be
yeah.
honest. Like,
Maura Turney played the sort of matriarch of the family.
yeah,
And there's just certain scenes there, especially later in the film, where you're just like, how is she even
yeah.
carrying on? Like, how is this even a thing? I thought Lily James was very good as Pam. Kevin Van
You know
Erich's
what?
super
I
well.
didn't even realize it was there. Like
Did you
I
not?
was no, I was like I wasn't shocked because do you know when you recognize somebody? But I was like, I don't know why I recognize her. And then
Yeah.
when at the end it came up, I was like, oh,
Nice.
like that. She was really good.
Yeah.
Like I think she was the
Um,
person who like I felt like obviously not like spoilers and stuff, but I think she kind of kept it all grounded. Do you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
The same as the mom. I think the women in the story were like the thing that was like they were the characters that sort of didn't let it escalate
Mm,
too much, like the whole wrestling thing and the whole like, and even like, I think keeping Fritz on a like keeping him knowing where he should be and what he should do and
yeah.
not go
Yeah.
too far.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of that was the women in the film. I'll be honest, but yeah.
I thought the script was great. I thought everything worked. That there's a scene quite early on, and again, not to sort of spoil anything, where Lily James's character Pam says to Kevin, "Well, wrestling's fake in it," and he explains it in such a way that just makes perfect sense. In that,
Yeah.
us as wrestling fans have always had to sort of go, "Well, it's not fake. It's like predetermined, in that they know who's going to win." So she says prearranged, but then he goes into a whole thing of like being the world champion is like getting a promotion. Like if you're good at your job, you want to make sure that you make the next steps, and that's what it is in wrestling. Whether it's prearranged or not, that still actually means something, even though the company's decided to put the belt on you. But they've only decided to put the belt on you because you're good at your job, because you've proven your worth. And I'd never really sort of considered it like that before, but it made
No,
sense. And I'd never really heard it in the sort of mainstream either for that to make sense.
yeah. I think the only time I have s- these I can't remember who said it, but someone a wrestler was talking and um somebody had asked them like, why do you cry when you win the world title? You know what I mean? It's like
Mm,
it's all fake. Like it's not like you know you're gonna win it, so why are you crying? I can't remember who it was, but he kind of explains it like, well, it's like winning an Oscar. Do you know what I mean? That's your life's work, and you have hit the peak of your life's work.
mm,
So you've 99.9% of the time you've trained and wrestled and done your thing for 20 years sometimes. And then you've got to the tippy top of that sport or that whatever it is you want to call it. Um, and that's emotional. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like you're not like Christian Bale knows he's not Batman, but if he won an Oscar for Batman, he'd be happy about it. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? He would be like, I'm not Batman, you know. Like, so that's the only way I've really heard it. But this was kind of like, yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
And it was like talking about like the crowd reaction and stuff like that. Like, there's sort of a lot of what he said made more sense than it should have.
Hmm.
Like, it was kind of one of them where you're like, wow, like I've been trying to explain wrestling to people forever.
Yeah. And you've sort of done it in a,
You've done it yeah, these writers have done it in two sentences, and I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
that's unfortunate, but yeah.
Um, we see a lot of wrestling sequences, obviously, all the way through. Very well done, very well choreographed by the one and only Chavo Guerrero Jr. Big credit at the end of the film.
Yeah. Little cameo at the start as well.
A little cameo at the start. And we see a lot of characters and sort of people that but definitely by name familiar with. But then more so the later on that we get. So Harley Race pops up, Gino Hernandez, Bruiser Brody, Ric Flair pops up, which I think is one of the sort of sticking points of the film, the talking point of the film, in that for as great, and I said this to you on the way out, like when you see the Von Erichs, they are the Von Erichs. Like they are like that family works. That the casting, the performances of them work. But then the thing that sort of takes you out a little bit is when a guy comes on playing Ric Flair, who looks like he's never seen Ric Flair, and is basically doing doing what he's been told to do. But it's a bit jarring. But it's a nitpick in a sort of periphery of everything else that's going on, really. Like no one's sort of going to this and going, oh well, it falls flat because the Ric Flair was crap, you know.
Yeah. I think it's one of them as well where it's easy to, like, we did get a bit nitpicky about the Ric Flair thing, but it's easy to forget that in the nicest possible way. And I'm not I'm not digging Ric Flair out, but Ric Flair's definitely became a parody of himself, like in recent years or later years, we will say, where he has his catchphrases and his things he does, and this is early Ric Flair. This is like Ric Flair when he's finding not finding his feet. That's the wrong word to say, but this is Ric Flair in the 70s, isn't it? So he's still doing his stuff, but he's not hitting them catchphrases. He's not hitting them like moves and doing his thing. And do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's important to think. It's not Ric Flair in his 70s who's reminding you who he is. It's Ric Flair in his, I would say probably before his prime, doing his thing. And I think that's important to remember. Like, I think the Ric Flair you think of now is not the Ric Flair from 40 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that being said,
energy drink.
Yeah, it's still not the best, but you just get past it. Just
yeah, of course you do, you know. So before we wrap up the sort of spoiler-free bit, I would recommend this for any wrestling fan, but then at the same time, even if you're not a wrestling fan. Like on the way out, we were talking about how we were going to show Rach and Amy at some point. And like Amy has no idea about the Von Erich family. Like she doesn't know the story and all that kind of stuff. And I do think there's a part of it, and we will get into more detail later, where when the hits start happening, even I went, Jesus Christ, that couldn't have happened as well. But then it's like that made me worry slightly for a non-wrestling audience to go, surely they're taking the mick now. You know, surely all of these things didn't happen in such a sort of sequential order. But you then read into it more, don't you? And you sort of realize that unfortunately things did happen like that. Like I'm intrigued to see sort of going into this week when the critics start coming out with their views, or sort of the UK critics anyway, because it's had a weird release, and I'm gonna go and get to that later. But I'd highly recommend it. I think you would do too.
Yeah, I think as you say, I think it's definitely a must for a wrestling fan. It's strange though, because although wrestling is clearly an important part of the film, it's not really what the film's about. That's like the B or C plot. Like that's to the side. It's more about the family.
Yeah.
But yeah, I knew the story going in, and I knew what happened, and even I was like, Jesus, like there's a lot happening here. I say not to spoil it, but there's mention of like he's mention of a case around the name. And it's fair to say that by the end you're thinking, is the like
yeah, you're like, surely
wow,
like some sort of like paranormal whatever is going on here, you know. But yeah, right, we're gonna go now full spoilers. So
Okay.
if you're thinking that you're going to watch it, if you know you're going to watch it and you've booked it and all that kind of stuff, you're going this weekend, stop watching. All right.
You definitely should watch it, by the way.
Watch this, definitely, right? Go and watch the Iron Claw, but if you want to go spoiler free, stop now.
Mhm.
Right. So the one thing I was going to mention right at the beginning of the film, right, doesn't really come up on the Wikipedia, but the black and white footage that you get of Fritz that starts the film of
Yeah,
like him just absolutely hammering one of his opponents just sets his character up instantly. And it's
100.
like he
Yeah,
is ruthless. And then
yeah,
it's like, here are his kids.
yeah.
And you're like,
Do you know
how's
what I
that?
thought was dead interesting? Like that black and white, but then it slowly like opens up like the color palette, but like
Yeah,
super slow. Like it started off like even when he was still in the ring and he was doing his thing, it was slowly you were getting little bits of color, not like all these yellows and blues and rainbow colors, but it was like you were getting a bit,
yeah.
and it was like kind of like okay, this is where we're getting like
Get in there slowly. Yeah,
that was an amazing opening. That like
yeah.
it was so good. Like and as you said, I think it set the tone for the film in general, but
Mm,
definitely his character. Like his
yeah.
character was insane, like absolutely mental. I'll be honest, but
So we sort of start off spending a lot of time in Texas, obviously Dallas, Texas, famous for the Von Erichs, Sportatorium, things like that. You're
yeah,
talking world-class championship wrestling. So you're doing WCCW at this point, owned by Fritz. And he's got numerous chips on his shoulder because he should be NWA World Heavyweight Champion, but they've sort of scuppered him and they've not let him do that, and they've got something against him and all this kind of stuff. And basically, he's trying to get Kevin there. He's trying to get Kevin to the point where because he's the Texas Heavyweight Champion, it must mean that at some point he's going to get a match. And we
yeah,
see a match with Harley Race, which I thought was going to be the beginning of going into the issues of the family because there's that bit where Harley suplexes him on the outside
yeah,
and you sort of slow down massively and he's in pain and he's not really sure what to do and
yeah, like proper
he's
wins
thinking,
him, isn't it? Like
yeah. And I
yeah,
thought, is there something here about maybe him going down the route of maybe a painkiller addiction or something like that? I wasn't certain on where we were going to go, but then thinking about it now, it's his weakness that they're trying to get across
yeah,
because Fritz jumps on it instantly. Because
mm,
Fritz is like, it took you a while to get up there. So then the doubt is already in his mind of, I don't think you're the person to go for this world title. We're going to start thinking about who else we can put in there, which is when David makes his debut and David immediately usurps Kevin in that
yeah.
Fritz goes,
Yeah, I
you're going to
think
get it.
the thing with David was more he was good in the ring, and then obviously he cut a promo,
Mm,
and his dad was like, "Oh, actually, this might be the guy.
yeah,
Rather, like he can talk, he can wrestle. He's the full package, if you like." And I think that was when his dad was like, "Oh, well, we have been putting me chips on the wrong guy here." Like,
yeah,
and then that's. But it's interesting because at no point throughout the film do any of them really have are not proud of any of the brothers aren't proud of the other brothers for
mm,
what they're doing. It's never an issue where it's like, well, you stepped over me.
yeah,
There's a little minute where you kind of get it, and he's like, "Do you have a little argument?" I suppose later on in the film, but there isn't really. It's never. It's always about the dad. It's always
yeah.
about like
It's always
what.
about pleasing Fritz and doing
Yeah,
what he thinks.
yeah, and it's kind of like that you
Because,
jumped over me, but it's not your fault. It's his
yeah,
fault. Do you know what I
there's that
mean?
sort of like, you can tell that the way that they've been brought up in the sort of like nature versus nurture thing, in that the conditioned to believe that the most important thing in the world is wrestling. And because the dad never brought the NWA world title back to the house, that one of them needs to do it. It needs to be in
Yeah,
the house and it
yeah.
needs to be them. And that, like you say, like Kevin is the first sort of proxy to it. But
Mm,
then because he shows a little bit of weakness and because David bests him in a promo, his dad then goes, "Oh well, maybe it's David." But then later on, it's like Kerry comes back from the Olympics because the Olympics got cancelled, and then Dad sees him running and goes, "You're going to train to be a wrestler."
Yeah, it's so
And
strange that,
yeah, like he
like,
watches him run in a field playing football, and he goes, "You're going to be a wrestler," and Kerry just goes, "Yeah, all right, Dad."
yeah,
Yeah,
mad. Like, yeah.
you know.
I know.
Um, so I mean, I skipped past a little bit about where the Von Erich curse gets mentioned because Kevin tells Pam about it, and he
Yeah,
says there's a Von Erich curse in that they lost what would have been Kevin's older brother and the eldest sibling, Jack, to I found out afterwards, he doesn't mention it in the film, but I read about it that he was electrocuted by a part of a sort of, like if you were towing somebody, the
yeah.
part of a car, he was electrocuted by that and then fell face first into a puddle and
Wow.
drowned in the puddle. Yeah.
When he
Like
was a kid.
when he was a kid, like 5 or something.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, so that
Disgusting.
that was when they sort of went, it's the Von Erich curse,
Yeah,
of which more will come later.
yeah,
So once Kerry's trained up, once we're sort of where we are, there's a little bit of rebellion where Mike just wants to be in a band and Mike just wants to go and play with his band. And the,
yeah.
the brothers sort of go, "Oh, well, we'll take him." And Mum goes, "No, it's not happening. It's not happening." And they sneak out, they take him.
I
Um,
think that shows like the brotherly bonds more than anything
yeah,
else.
that's a really nice scene because it's one of the first scenes that we get of seeing all 4 of them together,
Yeah,
and you can sort of see it instantly of they'll do anything to help each other. And even though the parents might say one thing, they'll go and do another thing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Um,
really, yeah,
yeah, it was good. And then so by the sort of early 80s, they're a trio. So you're working with the Von Erichs. We see a bit of the Freebirds, bit of old PS, Michael PS Hayes in there.
Freebirds are good, Like
I like the Freebirds.
yeah,
I had a little bit of a grin on my face when they said from Bad Street USA because I thought,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
here we go.
yeah, man, yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I like the whole um, when he like put the Rush album on,
Yes. And it was like
and
Tom Sawyer. There we go.
so yeah, and then it
Yeah.
was like listen to it, and then that became the entrance music, and like little things where you can see all little bits of all the brothers
Mm.
within the tag team, like doing the thing. And it's like as well, they was a trio, but they all had their own like thing that they were doing. Like obviously, Kerry had like the jackets and he came out and did his thing, and then Kevin obviously still didn't wrestle with shoes or anything like that on. So even though they were this trio, they still had their own little take on
Yeah.
whatever way they were doing it. They were just the Von Erichs. So that's what made them the team. Like I really like that bit. That was like it was really
It
good.
was good. It was the 6-man stuff. I'm glad they sort of obviously kept in and
Yeah,
and sort of went through. Um, so around about this time, Kevin's realizing that he sort of needs to get his own place with Pam and do all that kind of stuff, and they get married. And then I said this to you, I've kind of not necessarily glossed over, but I've sort of just gone through the first hour of the film quite quickly because I
yeah,
said this to you on the way out that the first hour of the film is, oh, these are the Von Erichs. You'll like the Von Erichs. And then the
yeah,
second hour is, whew, like,
yeah.
stuff's going to go down and
We're gonna make you fall in love with this family, and then
we're going to break your heart.
we're slowly gonna make you cry for the next hour
Yeah.
of the film. Yeah.
Yeah.
So first hour, it sounds like we've said like it's not a very good setup, but it is
Oh,
like
it is. No, it works
first hour is
perfectly.
really
Yeah.
really really well done. Like, and it really does make you kind of care for the family
Yeah.
and you care for the brothers and you really dislike Fritz. Like it's one of them where it's not he's not a person who has got many redeeming qualities really. I suppose what's insane though as well is that when we're talking about that going to that like concert so he can do his music and that the mum is like, oh yeah, he used to write songs and do his things, and it's like that little the way it's sort of like this is who he was before wrestling.
Yeah.
Like he was so nice before wrestling, and he was so like attentive and loving and all that stuff. And then wrestling happened, and granted, that's the thing that provided the family, the home, and the lifestyle and all that stuff. But it basically poisoned him from the inside because
Yeah.
he never got what he wanted. He was never good enough. He was never this. He was never looked at the way he thought he should have been looked at, and that slowly turned him into this bitter old man who thinks he's the best and thinks his company's the best, and it's just not like it's not looked at like
Completely
that.
changed his character, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Because to jump ahead a little bit, and we'll go back to obviously the other stuff. There's a bit towards the end of the film where once Kevin started taking over the company and taking over the wrestling company, he's going through the books and he's realizing that his dad's like fudged figures here,
yeah,
because basically in the books it says that Kevin should have been paid a certain amount, but then Fritz has been taking a little bit as well, and he's sort of saying like I'm putting that back in the house. So even though he's now done in the ring, Fritz, he's put his sons there, but then he's still taking from his sons at that point. He's still, and he's saying that like I'm doing it for the good of the family and I'm doing it for this, and it's just blinkers on, like,
yeah.
there's one sort of
And
thing
then
that he wants to do.
he even brings up like, well, do you think living here is free? Like, do you
Yeah,
think living in my house is free? And it's like, wow, like
yeah.
so you're saying in the books he got paid X amount, but then you're skimming off the top. So he's kind of not in a
Room and
position.
board. Yeah,
Yeah, it's such a it's such a strange thing to do as a dad. But I feel like even that, the way the brothers are, like if like the dad came to them, or the mum came to them and was like, "We need you to start like helping out in the house and paying," everyone would be like, "Yes."
yeah, they
Like,
do it straight off. Like they don't say no. They don't say,
yeah,
you
like they're
know,
very, very family orientated, and they would have done anything for,
yeah.
even though the dad was terrible, they would have done anything for either of them. So
There's a scene at the beginning where Kevin goes into his mum and says, I need to talk to you about the way that dad treats
yeah,
David, or Michael, I think it is.
yeah,
And she goes, you need to go and talk to your brothers about that.
yeah,
It's like shuns him away straight away,
yeah. I don't, it's weird. It's like their relationship, sort of. The mum and dad relationship is. It's kind of like you get moments where it's dead nice, and
Yeah,
moments where she's. It feels like not necessarily she's scared of him, but she's like, I'm not getting into that. Like
yeah.
it's just not worth. It's not worth it. But then at the wedding, they seem all loved up, and at the meal with the family, they seem all loved up.
Yeah,
But
'cause
then
they go on dad's on a promise. We're getting out of
yeah,
here.
yeah. So it's one of them where you sort of like, I don't know whether that's just this kind of a sign of the times of what it was back then,
Yeah.
where it's like you can love this fella, but he's still the boss. Like he's
Mm,
still like if he says something, that's the way it is.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that's what they were trying to get across, but they had a very complex relationship, I think, because I think she kind of the mum hated wrestling in a way. Like it's kind of one of them things where she didn't have anything to do with it. She didn't seem to ever be there. She didn't seem to ever have any connection to it, even though she was in the film the whole way.
Mm,
It, the mum and the wrestling scenes were very much like separated,
yeah.
two very separate lives, if you like.
And there's only ever one point really towards the end of the film where she sort of speaks for herself and does something for herself
Mm,
when Fritz comes home and says, "Oh, what's for dinner?" And she goes, "I didn't make anything. I'm not hungry. Like I'm
yeah,
painting."
yeah,
But it's like because of everything that she's been through, and at that point I thought like, "What's going to happen here?" Like, is
yeah,
there was something about it that I just thought, "Oh no, like this is the last blow."
yeah.
Yeah,
I think she kind of just. That is very. I think that's pretty much the end, isn't it? But I think it's one of them where after everything that's happened, and she mentions as well about the painting the house, doesn't she? Like she
yeah, yeah,
painted
yeah. There was
kitchen
one
on the
that
wall.
one of the kids is looking at on the wall, and she says that she did it. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's Michael.
yeah,
And she's like, oh yeah, I painted that, and I think that's the point where I think she kind of realized that life's too short to just not do what you want to do.
Yeah.
She likes to paint, so she painted you didn't even see what she was painting. You
No.
just see the back of the canvas, like you didn't even see it. But it was one of them where she was like, "Yeah, I'm doing what I want to do."
Yeah.
Do you know,
Yeah.
because of all this tragedy. But we'll go back to
Yeah.
all the tragedy.
So yeah, so Pam and Kevin get married. There's a point during the wedding where Kevin goes into the toilet and he can hear someone being violently sick in one of the cubicles. And it becomes the start of the curse. He walks in on David throwing up in a toilet, and Kevin straight away is like, "You need to go to the hospital. You need to go and do something." He's like, "No, no, I'll be fine." He goes off on a tour to Japan and dies of what Wikipedia says is enteritis, some sort of intestinal issue.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think it's intestines based, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. But then there was something like there are people obviously who speculate that it was something else and that this is a cover up and blah 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 blah. So that was the death that sort of kicked off what it does then become referred to as the Von Erich curse going through. Um, we spoke about this as well on the way out that there's a scene on the sort of patio after he's died, after
Yeah.
his funeral, where Fritz, Kerry, Kevin, and Michael are talking. And day of his son's death, Fritz's first point is we need someone to replace David in the match against Ric Flair for the NWA World Title. And it's like, how are you even thinking about that right now?
It's mad because like he says it, but he's like, we've still got that title shot.
Yeah,
Like that's still a thing that we've got to like
we
look
need
towards.
to, yeah,
You know what I mean? And it's one of them where it's like, wow, is that really what's important to you right now? Is getting that shot at the title? Because
yeah,
this is the thing I said to you as well, is that even though obviously we mentioned that they mentioned that it's predetermined or it's whatever it is, all the choreography that's in the ring makes it look real.
oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
the way Fritz talks about it is as if it's real.
yeah,
Like it's like we've still got that shot. Like and it's like, well, and so who's gonna bring the title home? But then it's like there's no mention of the like, okay, so whichever one of them goes there, that's already essentially quote unquote predetermined.
yeah,
So that shot, unless he was gonna win it, and it's like, well, we know he's gonna win it, so one of you's are gonna win it.
mm.
But that's never ever mentioned.
No, it's
It's never
not, yeah,
mentioned. These title shots are this and that. It's like we've got that shot, so who's gonna bring it home?
yeah,
And essentially, before that match is booked, you know who's gonna win.
mm.
So it's kind of that. I think I like that because it shows that the kind of it's real to him. It's that like meme where it's like the alpha was crying. Could have been Fritz, you never know. The alpha was crying saying it's still real to me, damn it.
Yeah,
I think that's what they're trying to get across with that, which makes sense. But then as a wrestling fan, you kind of like, well, surely this has already been booked as Flair's
yeah.
keep going here, there, and there to defend it in the next like however many months. So the way
Maybe that
he's
shows,
talking,
maybe that shows Fritz's psyche in that maybe he got a little bit more into it in that yeah he's knowing that it's all a work, but at the
yeah,
same time he's like one of you needs to step up and go and win the title, and
yeah,
is he confusing the sort of the predetermined aspect of it and a sort of real aspect to it and feeling like this is
yeah,
something that needs to be won, this is something that needs,
yeah, yeah,
because there's that bit where he's training David to do the Iron Claw, and he's like, more pressure, more pressure, more pressure, more pressure. Yeah, so as if he's gonna do something.
yeah, as if it's like it is real, like that. Like that's the thing. That's the bit that's like, uh, as I say, as a wrestling fan, you kind of like, well, hang on, that doesn't make sense. But then if you actually think about it, that's just the way. Like in his head, he's like, well, I'm the best, and I do
Yeah.
this, and
Yeah.
well, it's this and that, and do you know what I mean? It's one of them where maybe that's just, as you say, his psyche, where it's like, well, this is real. So,
Mm.
like, and in his head, he's thinking, well, if you do a good enough showing against the world champ, then the NWA, like, higher ups, will be like, he's winning it.
Yeah.
And that. So it doesn't matter if you don't win that match. It matters how you look in that match, what you do in that match, the crowd reaction in that match, and then you get what Kerry called, what Kevin called promotion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's how you get your promotion. Like he's saying, like bring it home, but he's not necessarily saying bring it home
Mm.
on this day at this match.
At some point,
Yeah, it's like if you're fighting Ric Flair, people are going to stand up and notice. Like
Mm.
you've got to be your best because people are watching Ric Flair, and by proxy, people will be watching you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you get into like the rub. Like obviously, if you're fighting Ric Flair and he's on national telly and everyone's watching it and these X amount of people, and that's how it works. You get whoever's facing them gets the rub, and then people start watching WCCW because they're like, I liked what he did in the ring.
Mm.
You get one, and that's how the
Yeah.
tennis. You know what I mean?
Um. So Kerry goes and faces Ric Flair,
Yeah,
and they decide that on a coin toss.
yeah,
And the way that edit works, where the coin gets flipped, and then you just see a sort of despondent looking Kevin because he's not been picked, and Kerry's going doing it instead. So Kerry wins the title, and then there's a strange scene where Kerry's just sat in the kitchen, title on the table in the dark. Kevin comes in, they have a chat about it. Kerry goes out on his bike, and we don't see a crash. We hear a crash.
Well, this is the thing. Like you don't. It's it's strange, but I thought it was like proper clever
Mm.
that the huge events that if you know the Von Erich story, the biggest events, like the plot points that you would think we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this, of their family and their legacy and their life and all stuff like that, you never see
Yeah.
the actual plot points of the things that people know about the Von Erichs. And if you Google the Von Erichs and what happened to them and all that, the 5 or 6 things that will come up first are never shown in the film.
We don't see David in his Japanese hotel room at any
No,
point. We don't see him on a plane going to Japan. We don't
no,
see him fighting wrestling in Japan. We don't see Kerry's crash.
no.
You know,
You
it,
don't see any of that. You don't see him win the title. Like, even though it's
I would
got,
imagine it's maybe positioning more from Kevin's point of view then, in that
yeah,
we see what happens to just to jump ahead one more. We see what happens to Michael, but
mm,
Kevin was there for it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe it's more like the Kevin Von Erich. That's not. It's not really the story, but it's like him watching. I feel like it's him just watching his family implode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and this the idea of, as we say, this case sort of unfolding in front of him, and he can't do anything about it. Like, it's just all these tragic things are happening, and he's just gotta like carry on
Yeah.
and do what he's doing. It's so, yeah, it's so heartbreaking. Like,
Yeah.
it's even when like going back, even when um they're in the bathroom, like at his wedding,
Mm.
and it's Kerry and it's Kevin and
David.
David, and he's like, you can see all the blood in the toilet. So you
Mm.
can see all blood in the toilet, and then he's like, I don't think you should go to Japan, and they kind of look at each other like, all right, like that would never not happen.
Yeah.
Like that's not a thing that you do. Like imagine going to your dad and saying, "Hey, I'm not going to Japan because I'm throwing up blood."
Yeah.
He'd be like, suck it
Still
up.
breathing, aren't you? Getting on a
Yeah.
plane. Like,
Like go have the match, go do your thing, and then we'll fix it when you get back. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, it's that idea, but as you say, you don't. That's the only bit you see, and he's like, "I'm going." and then that's it. You get the dad gets a phone call, and it's like
Mm.
it's just like he died. That's that. And it's sort
Does
of
yeah.
yeah. And then as I say, the same with Kerry when he wins the title, and it's like I'll go and do it, and as you say, the coin toss, and then it's done. Like
Yeah.
that bit completely cut out.
Mm.
Just sitting in the kitchen with the NWA title.
Yeah.
Like there you go. That's that. Do you know what I mean?
It's in the house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just mad. Like the way they've done it, they've sort of been like, well, you know this, these are the bits you know. Like, so we're gonna show you the bits that you don't.
Mm.
We're gonna show you the in-between bits. We're gonna show you the family drama of it. And it's so like it's so brave to do
Yeah.
to make a film that is quite niche, I would say, and to be like all these massive things, we're not shooting that. Like we'll just show you
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean?
I'm
To,
intrigued to see, and we've still got a bit to talk about, but I'm intrigued to see where it lands in terms of like top tens, like the box office top 10 for the
yeah,
UK, especially because I feel like I've seen it everywhere. Like I've seen it on
yeah,
buses, I've seen it on billboards. Like I don't really think there's much competition for it this week, in the week that it comes out. So I'm intrigued to see how well it does because, like you say, there's going to be quite a few people who go, oh, this is a film about wrestling. I'm going to go and watch it. It's a film about wrestling. But then it's the sort of non-wrestling fan viewpoint of this looks quite good. We'll
yeah,
go and give it a go, you know.
yeah.
Um,
I
so
think
yeah,
it's
so
hard to tell with the wrestling thing because if you look at a film and you're like, "Oh, what's that about?" Oh, it's about wrestling. Oh no,
yeah,
what
you
this?
can, yeah.
And a lot of people do that. Oh, so, well, I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch wrestling. Bail that. But it's really not. Like
Mm,
it's really like it's very much a family orientated film, and you've got to think as well. Like 90% of the film, there's only really six characters.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? It's not a big ensemble cast where it's like you go into all these events and you're doing all this thing and these
yeah,
101 people in the room and that. It's literally like it's very close knit, which yeah, you could have done it. The way they've done it is amazing, but you
mm.
could have done it so much differently
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
breezed over a lot of things that have actually happened and stuff. But
yeah.
yeah, that's
So because once Kerry's had his motorcycle accident, the next scene or the next shot that we see is him getting out of bed and he
mm,
grabs his crutches. And I remember thinking, and I said this to you afterwards, like I wasn't aware of what had happened with his foot. I assumed that it would be some sort of like injury, like he'd broken his foot, and it just being a
yeah,
case of like, oh, you finally got the title, but now you're injured, so you're gonna have to drop it. And then there's a bit where we see a long shot of him making his way into a kitchen, and everything sort of like below his waist is obscured by a cabinet. And
mm,
I thought that when we sort of see it, it'll be him in one of those sort of big black steel brace type things.
yeah, like pins and that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we get an amputated foot.
Mhm.
You know, he's lost his foot. Now, I was reading up about this afterwards, and one thing that they sort of said was that he didn't lose his foot straight away, actually.
Yeah.
He tried to wrestle on it and made it worse, and then at that point they amputated.
Yeah.
So obviously we were talking before about how obviously some of the things they're going to have taken liberties on. At the beginning it said based on a true story rather than,
Right.
so I think, or was it inspired? We used one of them. It was either based or
Um,
inspired. Yeah, because I think that signifies that a lot of what you were seeing is true, but obviously they've done certain things to make the narrative come across as a little bit more, yeah.
yeah.
Um, so Kerry then tries to train
Mm.
using a
Well,
prosthetic.
just going back,
Wrong.
I don't think he lost as much of his foot as
Yeah, you
in.
said this, didn't you, about
I
yeah,
don't think so, to be honest. But there was rumors. So I've seen bits of Shane Douglas. He does
yeah,
a podcast, the franchise. So we used to travel with him sometimes when he was in WWE. Um, and he was kind of like, I knew there was something up, I knew there was something going on, but I never ever broach the subject because it wasn't anything to do with me. And he was kind of like, we shared a room sometimes, and I'd make a bit of noise to make sure that he like covered his foot up. And he was kind of like, I didn't do that to be like in a horrible way. I did it as like, you do you. Do you know what I mean? Like what you're doing is insane because you're wrestling on a foot. But there was talk of it being all fused, so like he literally couldn't move his foot at all. And then talk of him losing the front of his foot, so he still had his heel.
Mm.
But he never really said. But I think they've kind of took more off it
Yeah.
to emphasize the fact that he didn't have use of his foot, or obviously he's amputated part of his foot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, even that, like as I say, it's sort of, if you read about Kerry Von Erich, the first thing you're gonna say is, "Oh yeah, he lost his foot, or he
Mm.
lost this, or he did this." Didn't see it. Just went out on his bike a bit drunk,
Yeah.
and then that was it. He woke up the next day, and it was just like, "Whoa!" Like that's
Because it's
how it
like
was. You know what I mean?
it's a straight sort of just above his ankle, isn't it, that they sort of
Yeah,
show that it's just completely gone.
yeah,
And you see him sort of putting the foot on, the prosthetic foot on, and like you watch him get in the ring, and you're just like, what are you doing?
yeah,
Like, what are you doing? And then to say that like he went on to be Texas Tornado, and it's referenced in the film that he was the Intercontinental Champion, and
yeah.
just yeah. So because so all that happens, and
It's
then
bad with me as a wrestling fan, to be honest.
what?
The Texas Tornado thing.
Texas Tornado.
I don't I don't understand why you'd have a Von Erich and call him Texas Tornado. I'll be honest with you. Like I
Oh.
don't. The wrestling fan in me is like, wow, you are leaving money on the table there. Jesus Christ. Call him Texas Tornado instead of something Von Erich.
Yeah. Ah,
Ridiculous.
well. Kevin starts training Mike up,
Yeah,
and they have a match. And I mean, the match that we see, he looks so out of his depth with it. In
yeah,
that he's chucking a couple of drop kicks around, but the
yeah,
first one I went, I was a bit naff that one. It's
yeah.
like, yeah, it's purposely naff
Yeah.
because he
Well, he
lands
knows
on
who
his
gets any.
yeah he he lands on his shoulder. Now
This is the most madness injury
this is
I've ever
insane.
heard.
This is absolute
Like,
insanity.
yeah,
In that he landed on his shoulder, right? So in my head, I'm going right. So David's died. Kerry's had his foot amputated, and Mike's hurt his shoulder, and that's the curse. And I'm thinking there's going to end up being more to this. Something else is going to
yeah,
happen, right? And what happens with Mike is that he goes into hospital. They do the shoulder operation, but then his body goes into toxic shock, and he gets put into an induced coma, which then causes brain damage. And when I was saying before about the performances, the difference between Mike before and after accident, like Sam Simons for performing that, like Jesus, that is another level of acting that
yeah.
because everything is all of a sudden slowed down and
You
not to the point where
see
like,
whole face, like
yeah,
it's so strange, and like I know obviously you can change how you carry yourself, but it's even little thing, like even like his fingers in that were like it was like a different person.
everything, yeah,
It was so strange. Like
yeah. And I was watching it and I was thinking, well, where do they go now? Because there's even a point where they're talking about like, oh, he's going to get back in the ring soon, and it's like, are you mad? How's he getting back in the ring soon? He's got brain damage,
yeah,
you know.
mad.
Um, and he then, so not straight after that, commits suicide. Um, but the sort of there's a little in between where Kevin and Pam are going registering their new baby,
Mhm.
Ross, and Kevin says, we're going to give him Adkison as his surname because I don't want him to have the Von Erich name. So
Yeah,
basically, the Von Erich, the real birth name is Adkison. You know, Fritz had started taking the Von Erich name from, was it, did he say it was maternal?
yeah. I think it was his grandmother's
Yeah,
name or something like that. So
yeah.
yeah,
Because he was worried about the curse carrying on. Which, like, if you imagine, Like any other film, first of all, being based on a family surname curse sounds like a comedy, sounds like a
Yeah.
Adam Sandler, we are the numpties, this is the
Yeah.
curse that follows us round, right? But then real life, you being in a registry office and going, well, my surname's Von Erich, but I'm going to give him the surname Adkisson because there's a curse in our family.
Yeah.
And they
Well,
go,
it even gets more intense with the idea because um is it at one of the funerals, isn't
yeah,
it? So I can't remember whose funeral it is, but Pam, Lily James' character, is like, we need you to come home. Like, this isn't working for me. And you're going to be home tonight. And he's like, and Kerry's like, Kevin's like, no, no, not tonight. And she's like, you need to come home. You need to be
yeah,
with us. And he's like, no, I don't want you to, I don't want to be around you, and I don't
mm,
want to be around Ross because I don't want you to catch it.
yeah,
He said he's like, and I
he's
think
gone.
he's like sleeping in a barn or something like that.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I couldn't really wait. It was really
Quite
dark.
dark in it, those scenes where we just sort of see him
Um,
asleep somewhere, you know.
yeah. So so in his head, he's like, if I spend too much time with my son, regardless of if he's got the name or not, he is
Yeah,
gonna get the case. Like this
yeah.
case is
Yeah, so
do
I've just looked up on my notes there and it is on that bit. So it says Mike narrowly emerges from his coma with noticeable brain damage, but when Fritz presses him to get back in the ring, he takes his own life and Kevin starts to distance himself from Pam and Ross.
yeah. Because Michael's he plays the guitar a little bit, doesn't he?
He tries, doesn't he? That's that he
It
picks his
doesn't really work.
guitar up.
I think.
He's
Yeah,
trying to play it.
I think that's where it was. He's like, because music was such a big thing too.
Yeah.
That was where he's like, well, I haven't got nothing. So and even that, when he goes off, because he takes all these pills, and then when he walks into, because they live on a ranch, so he walks into the field, but even he's like carrying a blanket, and he's almost turned back into a kid,
Mm.
like, and he's just like, I'm carrying this blanket, and I'm just gonna keep walking until I can't walk
Something
no more.
kicks in. Yeah.
Yeah, and he looks really like, obviously he looks really fragile, but he looks super young.
Yeah.
Like it's strange. Like he's just that whole childhood innocence is just. I'm just done with
But
this.
just the
Like
fragility to it.
yeah,
It's just
like
yeah.
so good. Like it's such a good performance.
Um So, despite being grief-stricken, Kevin nonetheless fights for its worth for the championship. He's disqualified when he knows the referee. Because
Yeah,
again, this is that thing of real, not real. Like
yeah,
he looks like he's losing it, and he puts Flair in the iron claw, and he's getting his sort of temper and his frustrations out, and he gets disqualified. So that comes across as a real thing that happened. Like that was a shoot essentially, you know. So. Kerry remains the only Von Erich wrestling. Fritz has given Kevin the task of running the company. Marshall's now born because we see that there's a nice sequence where Kevin just looks like a new person, where he's
yeah,
taken a step back from it all, and he's basically a house husband,
yeah.
seemingly, because Pam says quite early on, doesn't she, that all she wants is to be a vet with her own practice and to have a kids and to and all that kind of stuff. And it feels like they've sort of finally got that.
Yeah.
Because then
I
they
think
start
it's that
thinking about,
like you see him sort of that realization of what am I doing?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
he's
yeah,
in
yeah.
he's after he's been in the ring, Ric Flair comes in and he's like, oh my God, I'll wrestle you anytime. Like that
I'll
was
rush you
amazing.
anytime. Let's go for a party. And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. And he's like, have you got any numbers for this? Where any places to drink this? And he's like, what are we doing? Where are we going? And he's just like, nah, it's sound. And he's like, oh well, I'm going to have a party. And then it like Zac Efron's sort of sitting there, and he kind of like does this half laugh of
mm,
like, and then he's like, what? What
what
am
am
I
I
doing?
doing?
Like, what am I even doing? Like, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. Like, why aren't I spending time with my kid? Like it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
that moment of being like, what am I actually chasing here? Like what
yeah.
am I doing? Like, and I think that's when as you say, he completely changes, and it must skip ahead quite a bit because he
Yeah, there
gets
must be some sort of gap
to,
because all of a sudden they're watching. Kerry at SummerSlam.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so Christmas time, Kerry
Mm.
turns up to the house with a random woman that his parents had never met before,
Right.
and he gives his dad a gun.
Mm.
Now my head went straight to, oh well, that's Fritz's gun, in that Chekhov's gun. So the idea of Chekhov's gun is that,
Yeah,
you know, I can't remember which film it was from, but you see a gun, and if you see a gun, you know that it's going to get used. And straight away, I was like, great, great. Kerry's brought into the house
yeah,
the gun that is going to eventually be his demise,
yeah,
because he even says to him, "Let's go and shoot it," and his dad
yeah,
goes, "Nah, we're
yeah. I
not
don't
going
want.
to do that.
Yeah, don't want to shoot it right now. Yeah,
I'm all right, thanks."
yeah,
Um, yeah. So Kevin gets a phone call from Kerry, who's really down on it, and sort of says, like, I'm not up to this, you know. Apparently, Kerry had said, I read this afterwards, I think on Wikipedia. So the thing about him being comfortable with Shane Douglas, he was also very comfortable with Roddy Piper, in that there were points where they were in hotel rooms and he'd just take the prosthetic off and would just, you know. But then there'd be times where when they'd be on the road and stuff, he'd say, I'm gonna go and be with my brothers again. You know, I'm gonna go and do this again. And that really comes through.
yeah.
And he he hangs up before Kevin can find out where he is. Kevin then rings Fritz and says, Kerry's not good. We need some help. And Fritz basically goes, okay, like, what?
Well,
What do you want me to do?
he
Like,
goes, no, you two need to work out yourselves.
yeah,
Like,
like, what do you want me to do?
yeah,
But
like you
then,
yourselves.
yeah, so then Kevin arrives at the house, and it's the way that they did this as well, where you pull up and you see a car, the doors open of the car, you go and you see the house, and the door of the house is wide open, and you're thinking, what's happened? But then it's gunshot,
Yeah,
and you're like, oh,
it's like one of them. It's sort of like because it felt like it was done in like one shot, like it was a they
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
um
Sort of tracking shot following and going
yeah,
into
yeah.
the
and
house.
and as soon as that kind of happened and it got into the house and then you did the gunshot, it was like if he would have if he would have looked around because it was
He
the
might have
tree next
just,
to the
yeah,
house. Yeah. Like he literally just went the wrong place.
yeah.
If he would have looked around the ranch, he may have seen him because he was like just
Mm.
behind the tree or next to the tree or whatever. Um, but yeah, that
There was
again and
somebody in
again
our screening who audibly went, oh, when the gunshot went off.
was the yeah,
Yeah.
yeah that. But yeah, I think even that you don't see it. You don't see what happened. Obviously, you know what happened, but you don't see it. And then yeah, and then
I thought there was a whole other thing,
yeah,
because so Kevin is obviously distraught. Fritz comes running, but
yeah,
then Kevin starts choking Fritz. And I
yeah,
thought, I don't, does this happen? You know,
yeah,
because it gets really close.
yeah. It does, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and
But
then
I think he hits the end of his tether, if you like, where he's like,
oh, of course, yeah, yeah, he snaps
"This
at
is
that point.
all you. This is
Yeah,
you've done
yeah,
this. You've like you should have looked after him. You should have been a dad. You should have like you were more interested in the world title
yeah.
than any of us. Like
The
all
pressure that
he,
you've put on is called.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
and I think as well. Obviously, we haven't really mentioned this, but um, Kerry was like taking everything and anything and
Mm.
doing everything and anything.
Yeah, it's not very explicit in the film, but there's a couple of sort of like there's a shot of someone injecting something into them, which I'm assuming is Kerry. There's a couple of lines of cocaine that go.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, there's a little bit with pills and stuff, but I'm assuming it was more prolific than that,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Strange though as well because there's no mention or like sort of in the background or anything like that of Kevin taking anything or doing anything. He seemed
Mm.
to be the one who was
Squeaky clean.
yeah. So I don't know if he was or he wasn't, but it definitely didn't look like he kind of didn't have any vices, if you
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
He just wanted to look after his family. Like it
Mm.
was, you know what I mean? So, but yeah,
Um, and then what is a really emotional bit, and it's probably the bit where if I show Amy, she's gonna cry. There's a sort of vision of the afterlife in that you see Kerry walking through a field and he's in a boat and he
yeah.
sees David and he sees Michael, and they're all essentially at that point in their lives where they are the best version of themselves. So it's like
But he's got
Michael
his leg back.
pre, yeah,
Yeah,
Michael pre brain injury with his guitar. You know, David's looking really healthy. Kerry's probably got his foot back.
yeah.
And
Well,
then
he's
there's
jumping,
even
weren't he? He's like
yeah, yeah. And
got
then
his
there's
foot
even a
back.
bit where like he says, is Jack Jr. here? And then there's a little 5-year-old there, and
Yeah,
he picks him up and he goes, you must be my older brother. I didn't get a chance to meet you, you know.
yeah.
And yeah,
Well, I'll be honest. While we're here, I was already tearing up
yeah,
when Kevin carried him to the dining table.
yeah.
Just sat there. I was like, this is a lot. And then obviously you see them walking. But we never really mentioned this. But did you see in the boat he had a coin?
Oh, I saw him put a coin down. Yeah.
I don't know what that was. Was that like the coin that was flipped and how different it could be? Or I don't. Do you know when you're just looking at something and you're like, I don't know what that
Does he
meant.
wish that he would have lost the coin toss?
Yeah, like
See, because he says, doesn't he? He says heads for Kevin or tail, whichever way around it is. So I'm
yeah.
wondering, did he put it down on the one that?
That's what I can't remember because that's what happened. So we won the coin toss. He won the title, and he was like, when he won the title, and obviously we talked about it. He was like, I'm having trouble coming down, so I'm gonna go for a ride.
Yeah,
So me head's going to if that would have went the other way, and
that would have happened.
Kevin would have got the thing. Kevin could have handled the pressure of being the champ. Where at that time, because he's in the
That's the
afterlife.
thing to look out for on the rewatch. That's
Yeah.
the, is it? Yeah.
So is it the other way round? Where he's like, if
Is
only
that's, yeah.
like this wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have been. Because he's on when he's on the phone to Kevin, he's like, I'm a freak. I'm like,
Well, yeah, because actually, because David's wearing the world title belt,
yeah.
and that would have,
So so basically it's going like he should have won it,
and none of this would have happened.
and none of this would have happened. But he's also looking at it like this coin toss was like this is the catalyst that caused this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, as I say, I weren't paying, not that I weren't paying enough attention. I was watching through tears, so
Yeah.
I was like, I was a bit like, like holding it together. But yeah, that bit was kind of interesting to me. That it was like, I wonder if that's what he was going with, to be like this coin
Mm-hmm.
could have went the other way and everything would be fine. And then he's seen his brothers and being like, well, actually, if David won the world title, everything would have been fine. Like
Yeah.
we'd all still be together. He'd be the world champ. Job done. But that's not the case, is it? So yeah, that's
Um, and then one of the last things that we see, Kevin sells the WCCW to Jerry Jarrett.
yeah,
He says his mother gives up her housewife duties for a hobby of painting and plans to divorce Fritz.
interesting.
Interesting. Pam's pregnant again, and then Kevin Kevin cries a lot at the end of
Yeah,
the film because he's just watching his boys play with each other.
me too.
You
Me too.
know, yeah,
That made me cry. I'll be honest.
emotional ending.
Well, that line at the end where he was like, "I just wanted to be with my brothers."
And the kids say, "We can be your brothers."
Yeah. So he says, I just wanted to be with my brothers, and now I'm not even a brother."
Yeah, because there was something about that when it hit me, I just thought, like, I don't know. Part of me at first went, "Well, of course you're still a brother," but then I thought, "Well, no, because
Well, yeah.
he's not, is he?"
So that line, or very close to that line, Kevin says on the dark side of the ring.
Wow.
He said, like, I'm at the point where I'm gonna find that episode, and I think they're on Amazon, but I'm not sure. But I'm gonna buy the season to watch the
Yeah.
Von Erich one or at least that episode, because I'm sure I'm like 99.999% certain that's what he says. Because I remember him saying it, and me and Rachel watching it, and we were both like, that's that's a heavy realization
Yeah.
that all you want to do is just be with your brothers. All you want to do is just like have a good. Because you could tell when they were all together, everything was okay. When they were all together,
Hmm.
they had such a laugh, like they had such a good time all the time. Like there was so much love between every single one of them. And then he sat there and was like watching his two sons, watching brothers play, and was like, I'm not even a brother.
Yeah.
Like it was, yeah. So I was already again. I was already like,
Yeah.
and then he said that, and yeah, like yeah, tears rolled down my cheek. I'll be honest with you. Like I was. It's the first thing Rach said to me when she got in the car, and she was like, "Did you cry?" And I was like, she was like, "You definitely cried." I was like, about 4 times. I'll be honest with you, but like, how can you not? She was just like, "Oh, I don't know if I'll watch it then." I was like, "Really?" She was like, "No, I will," but I'll be in bits. Like I'll be.
Yeah.
I was like, "Definitely, definitely, you will be in bits." Like
Yeah.
it's so sad, but it's just such a good film. Like, yeah, so good. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, so just to mention the release window, so I've done a bit of research because I spoke to you about this, in that it's been released at such a weird time. And I wanted to make sure that I get all the facts right here. So it premiered in Texas, obviously,
Yeah.
on November 8th, 2023, which was hours after the strike, the SAG-AFTRA strike came to an end. So it was like,
All right. Okay.
strike's done, let's all get out there, let's all promote this film, right? It was attended by Kevin Von Erich, making a public appearance in Dallas for the first time in over 20 years,
Wow.
alongside Bill Mercer, who appears in the film, or is portrayed in the film as the commentator from WCCW.
Who
Marshall
is that
and
commentator? Sorry.
Bill Mercer.
So, who does he play? Does he play?
No, the name of the real life person is Bill Mercer.
Is it
Uh,
Gordon? It's not Gordon Soley, is it?
no.
I can't remember who it is. Like I do know who it is,
No,
but
right, yeah, right. So the name of the commentator is Bill Mercer.
right. Okay. All right.
Yeah, but then there's somebody playing him in there.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go
No.
on.
Um,
Confused myself there. Go on.
yeah, and then so Marshall and Ross Van Erich were there as well, and Trish Stratus was there as well.
Nice.
Nice. The film was released in the United States on December 22nd by A24, and it's due to be released in the UK on February the 9th, 2024, right? So, in order for it to be eligible for Oscars, because this is the only reason why we were talking release windows, because like they've had nothing in terms of nominations and stuff, right? In order for it to be eligible for an Oscar, feature films have until December the 31st. So this was released on December 22nd. So, to open in a commercial motion picture theater in one of the six qualifying US metro areas: Los Angeles, New York, the Bay Area of San Francisco, Chicago, Miami, and Atlanta, right? So it has to open in one of those cities. This is just where it gets weird. And run for a minimum of 7 consecutive days, during which period screenings must occur at least 3 times daily, with at least one screening being between 6 and 10 p.m.
What?
So it has to have had 7 consecutive days in the cinema in
Yeah.
all five of those states, or sorry, in all six of those areas, and it needs to have been shown at least 3 times daily. So if at
So
one point in Miami they went, we can't show it 3 times today, we're going to show it 2 times, it's then not eligible.
wow.
Yeah.
So this isn't eligible because it's
I
not.
don't know. I'm assuming it might have been eligible, but like, to say that it had to have done 7 consecutive days and it opened on the 22nd, 7 consecutive days, you're thinking if they open on Christmas Day, they might have been, you
Yeah.
know, don't know,
That's
I tell you.
all that.
BAFTAs, equally bizarre. It is the intention of the rules that the British public should have had the opportunity to see the films entered prior to the ceremony, obviously, right? Films should therefore be screened and marketed to a public paying UK audience within the eligibility period below. Films should not be screened purely to qualify them, and the film committee will not accept an entry that otherwise meets the below criteria. Films must have been made available to the UK public for the first time between the 1st of January 2023 and the 16th of February 2024, right? So this is eligible by a week because
Yeah.
it's out on the 9th. But films are eligible if they've been theatrically exhibited publicly for the first time to a paying audience on at least 10 commercial screens in the UK for at least 7 days.
Okay.
So it needs to be on at least 10 screens to a paying audience for at least 7 days. But this
Okay.
is the thing, it comes out on the 9th, right?
I was just about to say that's not enough days, is it?
Surely that then means that they miss a day.
Yeah.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So technically 15th is the 7th day.
Yeah.
But is it on more than 10 commercial screens? I would assume so.
Yeah, yeah. You would
But
hope so.
again, this is where you're talking about these films now, and the nominations for the BAFTAs are already out.
Yeah.
So eligibility windows and all that kind of stuff, it's just not
But
the
then, so does that mean that next year they're not eligible because
it can't be nominated next year because it came out.
it falls into this year?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's absolutely nonsense.
Wow,
But
that's so bad.
it probably fell into this year because it then has to compete with the UK sort of scheduler of going,
Yeah.
that film's coming out then, that film's coming out then, so you need to go then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I understand that side of it, but then if that's the case and that's the way they work it, why would anybody want to release a film within
Yeah.
that window? Why would anybody want to do that? Surely that's like a dead month for films.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, if you're putting in your life's work and somebody's like, oh yeah, this is like Oscar worthy, this, oh, you've released it in the wrong 3 weeks. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's like that's typically why they think that you get things like Aquaman coming out on Boxing Day, because that's
Yeah,
going to fill the gap of they're not asked if it doesn't get nominated for Best Picture. They'll
yeah,
just
yeah, I
get
get
that
that.
out
Yeah,
and they'll
yeah,
do that. But then, like something like The Holdovers that came out in mid-January,
yeah,
very much a Christmas film because it came out in America ready for Christmas. Big
yeah,
Oscar contender. We get it after Christmas. But for
yeah.
whatever reason. I don't know. It always happens with like these award films in that like
Did you say the same happened to Dallas
Dallas
Buyers
Buyers Club.
Club? Mad, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that was I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I just thought you made a film within a year, whatever, like a date to a date, 2023 or whatever,
Mm.
and then you submitted it to the Oscar committee to be like, we think this is Oscar worthy, and they watch it and they're like, actually no, or actually yeah, that was sublime. That's literally how I
But
thought it
instead
worked.
it's
Like,
are you in one of the 6 areas between this day and this day for
yeah,
this many
yeah,
days with one
like
of these screenings at this time?
yeah. Was it
No.
showing between 6 and 10 on Tuesday? No. Well, what are you doing
No.
here? Why are you wasting me time?
Oh,
Yeah, like that's mental. But yeah,
absolutely
I
bizarre.
I I would say it's gonna take a lot to knock this off the best film of the year that I'm gonna watch. I will say.
Mm.
I would say it's creeping into one of like my favorites.
Oh. Mm.
Only because, right, this is the thing, right, that if I watch a film and then a week later I'm still thinking about that film, I'm like, that's had an effect on me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even to the point where I got in the car and I was like, after we talked about me crying, and I was like, I 100% watched the end of that film and thought, we need more kids. Like this is, know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Like he's on his own. That's a bit. Do you know what I mean? Like
How did Rach take that revelation?
she was like, "What?" Like, but it was one of them where I was like, that's how not I don't think that was the intent. Obviously, that's not the intended thing, and that's not the thing you should take away from it. But obviously that was a thing that is obviously a thing for me at the minute
It's
that
not
I'm
been put
thinking
out by
about.
population control. It's not.
Yeah, like that's something that's on my mind.
Yeah.
And well, there was two things that, and it made me a bit sad that I'm not nearly as close to my brothers as they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was a bit like, like, must be so nice to have that relationship with somebody that you're like
Mm.
you've always got somebody. You've always like these somebody always there no matter what. Like, and that really came across.
And then
And
how heartbreaking it must have been for Kevin.
that's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just how's he even continuing to go on?
Mm.
The three people, four people, I guess, but he never met his older brother. He was, or he did, but he was like, he died when I was like 5.
Yeah.
So it didn't, he was just not, he
He was
wasn't
very
there to
young.
play
Yeah.
one day. But yeah, to have that like bond with brothers was like, it made me a little bit jealous in a weird way. Like
Mm.
a little bit like, wow, I wish, I wish he had that. But
Yeah.
obviously it's like they're like so intensely together all the time and doing the thing, and they had these common interests, and obviously the dad was pushing them the same way, so they would all do. So all that makes sense to get it, but um, yeah, I feel like if you watch a film and days later you're still that film's still like that was powerful, that then that's got to be a good film. That's got to be up there in the films that you're like, this has made a lasting effect on me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there's only a handful of films that I would say has made a lasting effect on me. But yeah, you know,
It's currently sitting at mine #1 for the year. I thought that I thought I'd struggle to see something better than the holdovers so early on. But this pipped it. Next big one is probably June Part 2 of is something gonna pip it, you know. But yeah, it's very, very good.
it
Very, very
is.
good.
I don't think the wrestling aspect is as important as some people are gonna say when they see it and think, oh, wrestling film.
Mm.
Like, I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
Because essentially you could take out the wrestling for any other sport and still have the same story and still have the same impact.
Yeah.
And that's not the idea of the dad being like, you need to be a world champ, you need to win the World Cup, you need to like win this boxing thing. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. That side of it
Yeah.
is super important, but at the same time is interchangeable because it's not
If I can
that.
go and watch a film about boxing and enjoy it without liking boxing, you can go
Yeah,
and watch a film about wrestling and enjoy it without watching wrestling. But then at the same time, like you say, it's not solely about wrestling.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing to take away from it.
Yeah.
Like if you're not a wrestling fan, don't let that tear you away from
Mm.
being like, ugh, be bothered seeing the Undertaker and that. You know what I mean? Like it's not that's not a thing. Like, do you know
The
what I
Rock's
mean?
not in this.
Yeah, like one of them situations where you kind of like, oh, seeing wrestling, oh, it's so fake, oh, it's this. It's not like that's not what it's about. But it, it's absolutely tragic. Like
Mm.
that's the only way to put it. And um, the fact that even at the end when he was talking about Kevin, like Kevin and Pam have been married like 40 years. They've got like X amount of kids, like 14 grandkids, and they all live in the same house.
Yeah.
Like they all live on the same ranch. Like so, he's just surrounded by everybody he wants to be
Now
surrounded
living the
by.
dream, and he's now
Yeah,
living.
man.
Yeah.
Like it's just yeah, so nice. It's strange I would say before we like move on or wrap this up, it's strange that Kevin's let the boys, obviously they wrestle now, use the Von Erich name.
I was going to say that, yeah.
That's the only thing that I'm a bit like. It will be interesting to know what his thought process was on them wrestling and like, because Ross doesn't wear boots either. Like Ross goes barefoot like his dad.
Right. Okay.
So it would be, yeah, it'd be interesting to see where his head was when they were like, we want to carry on the Von Erich name, whether he was like,
Yeah, yeah.
or that side of it was embellished slightly. That he was like,
Yeah, maybe.
you know what I
Maybe,
mean?
yeah.
To make it
Yeah.
like all kind of make sense. I don't know. It would that, but that'd be an interesting like question to ask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To be like, wait, like as I say, because the Von Erichs is still a thing. The fact that
Oh,
they're
yeah.
like a bigger thing is truly shocking. But again, that's the wrestling fan in me, so it doesn't matter. So yeah. Anyway, so
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. Big review. It's out in UK cinemas on Friday the 9th, so we highly recommend that you go and give it a watch. Glad that we got to see it when we did. Anything you want to plug before we go?
No, this will be on SLTD's YouTube, and this will be the next episode, obviously, with SLTD Roundtable. Yeah, we're doing our YouTube thing at the minute. So if you could subscribe, like, do all good stuff over there. If you have watched it and you watch this, and um, yeah, comment and let us know what you think of the film. And let's get into it. Yeah, but yeah, as I say, I highly recommend the film. What would you like? Where's your where's your rating system?
I started sort of going like out of 5 stars. What would I give
Yeah,
it?
do you do this on it's on Letterboxd or something? Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
I've got a letterbox. Yeah,
Yeah. So they've got a rating, haven't they?
yeah. It's currently sitting at 4 stars
Right. Okay.
because I can't bring myself to do halves. Like I remember an old student sort of saying to me like, "I found your letterbox." I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Why do you not do half ratings?" And I was like, "Don't even get started. Like it's either a 3 or a 4 or a 4 or a 5."
You can't do quarters in that. Can't
You
do.
can do quarter. No, oh no, letterbox only just halves, but quarters
All
is
right.
just taking it too far. But
Um,
like I'm not touching half stars. No.
I'd say you're right about a 4. I would say.
Yeah.
If I had a letterbox, I would say 4 is probably and then the 5 stars for Ric Flair. That's why it's grayed out.
If they
That way.
nailed it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. If they had a decent Ric Flair as well, I'm convinced that he's watched it and thought, "Should just got me. I look exactly the same."
Probably, yeah.
Like, I just put a wig on.
De-age me. The most expensive thing in the film. CGI all over his face.
Yeah, man.
I'll do it.
Yeah. I was like, why didn't they just ask me to do it? I'm still here. What's going on? But yeah,
20-year-old me.
yeah, I do. I highly recommend it. I am obviously the wrestling side of this, so if you're watching this on SLTD Wrestling Roundtable or listening to it or whatever, obviously you're a wrestling fan. Obviously you should go and see it. But it's one of them where you take someone who isn't a wrestling fan, like, and see what they think, because it's always interesting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I absolutely loved it. I'll be honest. Yeah, career best from Zac
Career
Efron.
best Zac Efron.
There you
And
go.
there's no song in sight.
No, oh, I forgot he was in that. Oh, maybe it's not. No, I'm joking.
Thank you very much for watching, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Stay safe. Look after each other. And we'll see you next time.